Okay, so I want you to screenshot this. This is your action steps for this whole concept around energy management. So I want you to think about what activities energize you, right? What gives you energy? And also, what activities in your life or your business do you find a little bit more draining and that sort of take your energy? And then you're going to connect the dots between these two types of activities. How can you take advantage of your really high quality energy? How can you maybe merge the two together? Where do they fit in? Is there any way that you can connect the dots there? And I also want you to think about, what would I do if I just had abundant energy to do anything in my life or my business? What would that look like? Because when you really take a step back and you ask yourself that, it's kind of incredible to really look at just how much we can really do. And when we know what we're working towards, that gives us that wonderful opportunity to be really strategic and intentional about getting there. Okay, so keeping in mind this whole foundation of energy management, we're now going to talk about a few strategies for structuring your day to really maximize your time. And again, this is all building off of that foundation of having good energy management. I'm just going to take a sip of water. Okay, so 3 tips for structuring your schedule. The first tip that I have is consistency, okay? So when you're trying to structure your schedule in such a way as to maximize your time and energy and to really be a lot more productive, one of the ways that you can do this is to do the same tasks at the same time of day. So here you're looking at, 8 o'clock in the morning, you might do some freelance work. 10 o'clock in the morning is when you check your emails. 1 o'clock in the afternoon is when you do social media scheduling, that kind of thing. The other way of doing this is to do the same tasks on the same days of the week. So for example, I like to do my weekly audits, my weekly check-ins on Sundays, and I'll talk about that in a moment. I like, as I'm just glancing over here to my side where my big, 12-week calendar is, I like doing my bookkeeping and admin tasks on Fridays. I like doing client work for my freelance clients on Thursdays. So I have different days of the week that I really like doing these types of things. And when you look at it this way, when you're doing the same tasks at the same time of day or the same tasks on the same days of the week, what this does is it takes the decision making out of the process. So you know how there's often, you hear about CEOs who wear the exact same thing every single day? Well, it really removes that decision making out of the process so that they don't have to even think about that. And it's the same sort of concept here. You have so many other things that you need to think about and make decisions about in your life and your business. Why spend that precious brain energy trying to figure out what should I work on at this time or on this day of the week? So this is really going to help make everything so much more consistent and enable you to not have to worry about it, but to know exactly what you're working on every step along the way. And my bonus tip here as well is to really make sure that you're adding buffer time into everything. So rather than planning, okay, I'm just going to check my emails from 8 a.m. to 8:20 a.m. Well, if you have a lot more emails that are coming in, then you're going to want to have that extra buffer time to allow for dealing with that rather than having something else starting right at 8:20 a.m., right? So keeping in mind to have that buffer time, and that's going to really enable you to ensure that you're not falling behind on anything. Okay, tip number 2 here is to really have good routine. Okay, so here you're going to do each task in the same order every day. Now, this really works best if the time within your schedule often changes. So if you do shift work and therefore you don't have a set schedule of, that you always have like 9 a.m. is fine or 3 p.m. that you can do whatever. This is also going to be really effective if you have little kids and they're, you can't really control their sleep schedule and that kind of thing. The idea here is it's all about the routine. It's all about the order of operations. So rather than saying, checking my emails at 8 a.m., 9 a.m. is freelance work, 10 a.m. is social media scheduling, for example, all you know is that when you start your workday, whatever time that is, the first thing you do is check your emails. And then the second thing you do, even if you have, dealing with distractions or you have to pause or something, that the second thing that you do is dealing with freelance work. And that the third thing is social media scheduling. So you really are looking at that in terms of what is the order of operations. Again, it takes the guesswork out of it. It takes the decision making out of it. And my bonus tip with the routine is to use a social media scheduler, such as Edgar. I love Edgar. I've tried many different social media schedulers over the years, and I have not found one that I love as much as Edgar for both myself and for my clients. But really here it's about, batching and repurposing these types of things. So if you can make good use of doing things like taking your content and figuring out how can you work it into your routine, how can you incorporate it in such a way that you're not constantly reinventing the wheel, really focusing on batching and repurposing throughout your schedule is going to make your life so much easier. Okay. And then tip number 3 is all about creativity. So this is where that energy management stuff is really, really important, right? Because here you're identifying your most creative times of day and also your most creative days of the week. So for example, I find that my most creative time of day tends to be earlier in the morning and also a little bit earlier in the evening. So during those times, I like to set that sort of aside for writing my novels or creating content of any kind, right? So creating this workshop for you guys. And really also looking at what are your most creative days of the week. So if you have certain obligations on some days of the week and that kind of saps your energy, then maybe the next day you're not as creative. So keeping in mind what your creative times of day are going to be so helpful for energy management. And the bonus tip that I want to mention here is to really pay attention to what your body and mind need from one moment to the next, from one day to the next, 1 week to the next, one season of the year to the next. So this might sound familiar to you, but personally, I find that as the seasons change, my energy levels also really change, right? So my creativity is going to shift depending on how long the days are, right? When there's shorter days or longer days, that can have a real effect on us. And also sometimes there's just more going on in our lives, more stuff to deal with, and so we find ourselves being less creative. So one of the things that I really focus on inside Productivity Powerhouse, I teach about all of these things in great detail, but one of the first things that you do in that program is really assessing yourself. So assessing, it's a full self-assessment of your productivity, so your personal productivity and organizational style, as well as how to actually change it and how to adapt to it as your energy levels change from one moment to the next. So how to be aware of that and how to deal with that as time goes on. Okay. So when we're putting all of this together, right, these 3 different tips for structuring your schedule, what we're really looking at is combining repetition with habits with intentionality. So it's about being extremely strategic and intentional about everything that you're doing in your business. And it's really about repeating things as needed, right? You're not reinventing the wheel. You're figuring out where do I keep doing the same things over and over? And how can I just make sure that that correlates together? And it's about having these habits and routines. I also want to note that simplicity goes a long way. Things do not need to be overcomplicated. One of the biggest problems that I see so many business owners doing is that they are overcomplicating things completely unnecessarily. So if you decide to structure your schedule as such that you have one thing at 8 a.m., well, maybe don't plan for something at 8:20 a.m. and then something at 8:30 and then something else at 8:40 a.m. That's a lot of stuff in there. It doesn't need to be overcomplicated to that extent. You can really make them much larger blocks so that everything is just so much easier in your business. The entire point about all of this is to make everything easier. And mindfulness really matters. This is all about being very strategic, very intentional, and very mindful about what you are doing, when, and why you are doing it, right? Why it's a priority and what you're focusing on to really have the most clarity. This is all about creating the systems that are right for you. Again, you are a unique person. Your business is totally unique and different than anyone else's. So you aren't going to benefit as much by just copying and pasting what someone else is doing. Instead, it's really about getting inspiration from other people and understanding different strategies and techniques, and then creating your own unique customized system that is just absolutely perfect and ideal for where you're at in your life and your business. Okay, got some action steps for you. So again, screenshot these, or share in the chat if you're finding that certain things are resonating with you more than others. So the first action step is to identify your most creative times, right? When are you most creative? Throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the year? Your second step is to list all of your repetitive tasks. So what needs to be done on an ongoing basis, either every day or every week or every month. So keep in mind things like invoicing and bookkeeping and all that kind of stuff. Action step number 3 is to categorize all of these based on the time of day and or the day of the week and or the order of operations, right? So really figuring out where do all these things fit together. Again, keeping in mind your most creative times of day. And then fourth action step is you're going to brainstorm and plan for batching and repurposing. When are you going to fit those into your business and your life? How can you add them to your schedule? Where can they fit in really nicely? And then that fifth action step is just make sure that you add that buffer time so that nothing slips through the cracks, so that nothing's too rushed. Okay, so keeping in mind all of these things that we've just been talking about, now we're going to use that as we go into this 5-step system for 10xing your productivity. So here we go. The first thing that you are going to do is start tracking where your time goes. So we just organized and categorized different types of tasks, right? So here, once you have them all categorized and organized, then you can use a time tracking software. I like to use Toggle. It's free. You can certainly use whatever feels good to you, whatever sort of method feels good. But here the concept is that, ideally you'll do this on an ongoing basis, but you're really going to be looking at reviewing as you go along. So even if you just tracked your time for a week, then you can look at, okay, what did I end up spending my time on? What time of day was I working on which tasks? What days of the week was I using different types of things? And this is really going to make such a difference for you because it's going to help you be so much more intentional with your time. It's going to help you really identify where your time sucks are. You might realize that you spend way more time working on some things than others. And so now you can actually be more intentional about that. You can figure out, okay, I don't actually want to spend as much time doing this thing over here. I need to tweak things and spend more time doing this other component. And the results that you can really expect by tracking your time and reviewing it and adjusting things accordingly is that you'll have a much deeper understanding of time management and a way more increased control of your daily workload because you know exactly where your time goes every day and you learn how to actually do something with it. Okay, so this step number 2, planning for the upcoming week. This is one of my favorite methods ever. This has been a complete game changer for me. So this is really the concept of the weekly audit. So here you're reviewing your past week and prepping for the upcoming week. So in your weekly review, you're really looking at what did I do this past week? What worked? What didn't work? Why did something work? Why didn't it work? What did I say I was going to do and why didn't I do it? Right? So you're doing a lot of free writing. I have a list of about 20 questions that I ask myself every single week to really get in deep here. You're going to, update spreadsheets with data if that's what you like to do, all of that kind of thing. And then from there, once you've done that full comprehensive review, you can plan ahead for the upcoming week. What do you have in your schedule that's coming up? How can you plan each day? All of that. So that this way, every single week, you're planning ahead, you know exactly what you are doing when. And this is going to be a fantastic way for you to identify and tackle your personal weaknesses. I find it really, really interesting because when you're doing weekly audits, you actually have this written documentation of what you are thinking every single week. So I like to review, okay, where was I at, a month ago? And what I've discovered is that the more that you do this type of thing, and the more that you ask yourself very strategic, targeted questions, the more that you're going to look back and realize, oh, I said I was going to do this thing, and then I found that this obstacle came up. So I pushed it back a week. And then the next week, this other obstacle came up. So I kept on pushing it back. And you start to realize where you've been coming up with excuses for certain things and where you maybe need to dig a little bit deeper and figure out, okay, what's really going on? Why don't I want to do this, right? All of that kind of stuff. So you can really figure out your personal weaknesses because you yourself have documented everything, every step along the way. And the results that you can expect from this is a dramatic increase in your business progress because you are being so strategic and targeted every week. You're really able to fine tune, what did I do last week that worked and didn't work? How can I apply that information, that new knowledge that I have to my upcoming week and be super focused on making sure everything that I do is working towards my longer term goals, right? So you're not going to feel overwhelmed because you know exactly what you need to focus on and how that is contributing to your bigger goals. And I will share a little bit more about my weekly audits a little bit later as well. I love weekly audits so much. They're amazing, truly amazing. Okay, step 3 is to always stay 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 steps ahead. So this comes back to what we were talking about earlier in terms of creating that buffer time, right? So always kind of assuming that something's going to come up to derail you or something, whether it's positive or negative or somewhere in between, something might come up. So how do you make sure that you add that buffer time so that nothing, so you're not missing any deadlines, right? So here you're really prioritizing what matters most at this point in time for your business. And you're also using internal deadlines. So if you have a client project that is due in 2 weeks, the deadline itself is not 2 weeks from now, right? You want to actually make the deadline about a week from now. And that way you are having that extra insurance that you are going to focus on getting it done within the week. And if you get it done within the week, that's amazing. Your client's going to be super pumped because you got it done way in advance. And also, you'll suddenly have this whole extra week freed up, right, to do more work or take a rest or whatever it happens to be. And this is going to really help you because it's going to help you get a better handle on your work. You're going to improve your client relationships dramatically by doing this. And you're going to ensure that if that obstacle does come up and you need a little bit more time, you are still not going to miss your deadline because you planned in advance, right? So you'll be able to really complete your work in advance of deadlines, and you're just going to have extra time to spare, which is amazing. We all want extra hours. And so this is a really useful way to make that a reality. Okay. And then step 4 is to designate time blocks. So here it comes back to that whole concept of categorizing tasks into different projects, right? So really making sure that all of your tasks are, categorized and everything like that. You can use mind mapping, or there's so many different methods for how you can do it. And then organizing your schedule accordingly. I really encourage you that when you are putting things into your schedule to focus on what is realistic for you at this point in time. Try not to overcommit yourself. So for example, with my 3-month plan that I have here right beside me that I can look at every single day, I have it blocked off so that there's about 3 tasks per day max. There's rarely more than 3 things that I need to do per day. Usually it's like 2 tasks per day. And this is really helpful because I'm constantly moving things around. I'm constantly moving my schedule around, but it really ensures that it's not overwhelming. It doesn't feel like I have a million things to do because I know that my main priorities are just these 2 or 3 things. And then if I get them done and I'm still energized and ready to keep working, then I can move something from later on in the week. I can just move it up. And it's really helpful. So this is really going to help you get a much clearer picture of your priorities so that you know what to work on when, right? So you're going to be much more focused. And you're going to just be so much more you're going to have so much more clarity and so much more focus within your business, which is just incredible. You never have to worry or think about what should I be working on, what should I be doing at what time. You don't have to worry about getting burned out and overwhelmed when this sort of thing happens. Okay. There we go. All right. So step 5 is really grounding it all in energy management. So it's really about making use of your usual energetic times. This is really about paying attention to how your energy is shifting from one day to the next, from one time of day to the next, from one week to the next, all of that. And you're really going to be connecting the dots between your high and low energy activities as well. And then this is also going to help you really get way more done in way less time so that you can just have so much more improved quality of life and of work projects, right? So your work is going to be such higher quality as a result, and your life is just going to be, it's going to feel like you're just so much more fulfilled from there. Okay. There we go. All right. So, got some action steps for you. Of course, screenshot this again. Action step number 1 is to really track your time. So make sure that you are, figuring out a good system for you. Figuring out where your time goes is really the important thing here. You're figuring out, where is my time currently going, so that then you can make a change. Your second action step is to plan for the upcoming week and to do these weekly audits I talked about. Again, this is going to be a total game changer for your business. Action step number 3, work on staying a few steps ahead of schedule so you never have to worry about falling behind on deadlines. Step number 4, designate time blocks into your schedule. So really factor in, what am I going to work on? When am I going to work on it? That is what I'm focusing on at this point. And step number 5, be really intentional with how you're using your energy. Everything in your business and in your life can be super strategic, super targeted, super intentional. It's really about having so much intentionality and mindfulness that everything is just keeps moving forward at the exact pace and progress that you want. Okay. So to recap, today we talked about the number 1 secret to healthy time management, which is energy management, 3 strategies to structure your schedule, my step-by-step system to 10x your productivity levels, and how you can empower yourself to really build a successful business that you love and that works with your unique lifestyle. And of course, we had action steps for everything. So what's next? How do we sort of take all of this and move forward from here? Well, I want you to first share in the chat what some of your biggest takeaways are from today. What resonated with you the most? Share that with us in the chat. I'm curious to know.